depending where you are, if you wouldn't mind putting which school district, school, and state that anything you want to tell us, your state, your grade level, school district into the chat, that would be fantastic. We appreciate that. Carson City, Nevada. My brother's moving there in a couple months. They just bought a house. Joliet, excellent. Michigan, number of Joliet. Iowa, fantastic. Mark's from Arizona, where the sun is blazing, I'm sure. Nevada, Joliet. 6th grade, Temecula. Been to Temecula a few times. LA Unified, excellent. All the way from Kona. Instructional coach, BK through 12. Jackie, 4th and 5th out of Houston Science. Thank you. We're going to get started in about 2 or 3 more minutes. I know people started coming a little late, so we'll get you going there. Report. My sister-in-law is from Baton Rouge. A lot of Joliet. It's fantastic. Buffalo. My other sister-in-law is from Buffalo. And anybody else in there? Thank you, everybody, for putting that in there. That really helps. St. Augustine. Lots of Joliets. You all from the same school district in Joliet, or?
I think so. I think they recently adopted us.
Excellent, excellent. So Star Academy, excellent. Can we get started about 1 minute here? Hope everybody enjoyed the opening. Bert and Brian are both very star quality in there. So again, Michigan Science Fair a few years ago in Lansing. Quite a cool city there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for everybody for putting that in. My name is Brian Ladd, and I'm a TCI trainer, and I use TCI in my classroom. And my co-host is, Ryan, introduce yourself.
My name is Ryan Lonsdale. I'm a national account manager here at TCI, helping out Brian today.
Excellent. And Ryan is fantastic. And we don't want to do the countdown again here. Just a couple of housekeeping, and you're going to see this with each one of the presentations. The chat is really to talk amongst yourselves, and we won't be monitoring that chat. But if you have any questions, you have anything specific you need answered, put it in the Q&A, and I will look at it, and Ryan will be primarily monitoring that and answering your questions. And we'll obviously leave time for questions at the end too in there. We're not using the raise hand, so don't do that. Everybody's going to be able to see your messages as you go through. And if you need the closed captioning, just go to the bottom of your Zoom and put the closed captioning up so that you can see that as we go through. So what we're going to be covering today, this is a basic navigating TCI K through 12. And then I'll talk about the navigation, the slideshow delivery format, and then also resources in the in-app PD that you can do to further learn as we go through here. So this is our TCI Elementary Science program. If you're one of the original adopters back in 2018 or 19, you might have physical textbooks with an interactive student notebook, but most of you have the journals, and I'm talking about K through 5. Most of you will have journals here, and there was one journal per every unit. Middle school has physical textbooks, and they also have the interactive student notebooks. These are our Earth, Space Science, our Life Science, and our Physical Science layouts. Many schools go 6th Earth, 7th Physical, 7th Life Science, and 8th Physical. However, you can mix and match, so it depends on what your district is looking at there. TCI began as a social studies program, and then when NGSS came out, we decided, hey, what we do for social studies is exactly what NGSS wants. Hands-on, student-engaged learning, student-driven learning. So with every lesson and unit, we start with a unit in anchoring phenomena, or with the lesson an observing phenomena. Then we move into our 3D investigations. These 3Ds are the NGSS, the CCC, which is cross-cutting concepts, the DCI, the disciplinary core ideas, and the SEPs, the science and engineering practices. Then as they do these investigations, sometimes it's 1, 2, and middle school can be 3 investigations. Then we go back and make sense of this phenomena. So we start with the phenomena, something that our students can relate to. It doesn't matter what grade level. And then we bring it back to the phenomena. And then we have 3D assessments. Those 3D assessments are we've created the assessments for you. They can just be investigations. They can be show what you know in the elementary. Middle schools, it can be a full assessment bank, and the elementary school can also. Any questions about the format before I go live?
No questions so far yet, Brian.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to do a 5th grade lesson, so we're going to experience that lesson, and I'll also show you a little bit of the middle school to show you that the basic navigation is the same. So this is the 5th grade. And as of July 15th, for those of you who haven't gone onto your program and you had the program previously, the homepage has changed. We've combined the dashboard and the content into one page. Much more teacher friendly. Remember, we're teacher driven, and teachers made comments about, hey, can we make it so if my students do things online, I can see it immediately without having to go to the dashboard. What student work is there? Another new feature, which everybody's been asking for a while, is the search button. You can now put a search in, and I can put in rocks, and then everything dealing with rocks would pop up for me. It's something that teachers have been asking for, and we added that search button. So now it's a lot easier for you. Also, anytime you see a key, you can log in as one of your students. And so you'll see the keys throughout. 2 other things, if there's a present and there's a present for you, there's a dot, information about what's happening, what's coming up, any changes. And then the question mark, do you need help? You can also give us feedback about changes. Again, we're teacher driven at TCI, so we really want to hear what's important to you. On the left side is our menu, and it takes us through all the components. This is our home page, and these are our units. And I can go to the unit overview, and will take me to a specific unit, or the lesson overview, which will take me to a lesson. I'm going to start by going to Unit 2. And I'm looking at Earth systems. And we always start out, so I can click here, again, click here on the left, the unit overview, or I can start on the home page and go to the unit. And we always start out with a video with a storyline. And I'm going to play this particular storyline.
Hey everyone, I'm Nora, and I work for the Environmental Protection Agency, or the EPA for short. My job is to study water in and around the United States. Recently, California went through a very bad drought. A drought is a long period of time when there is little or no rainfall. This drought lasted over 5 years. Although this drought has ended, people in California are still dealing with the effects of the drought. Because of the drought, I have been studying where the water the people of California use comes from, why this drought happened, and how people around California are affected by drought. As a new intern to the EPA, you will help research the hydrosphere. You will use your research to write an article about how drought affects Earth's spheres. Then you will create a public service announcement to describe how you can solve water problems in your own community.
So even if you decide, this would go along with a unit project, even if you decide not to do the unit project, because it does take an additional 60 to 90 minutes of time, and I know most of us have very limited time to teach science, K through 5 especially, teachers I work with highly recommend that you show the unit overview. On this unit page, again, I'm on the unit overview for Unit 2, we have our SEP, what's the 3D learnings here, and here, and you can open it up and it will show you everything. So we saw the storyline, we talk about the anchoring phenomena. The anchoring phenomena is for an entire unit. And then we get to the lesson phenomena, which I'll get to in about 2 minutes. I'll talk more about that. The orange box, really important. This is invisible to students. This is what you should know, and really important because teachers are always saying, I don't have time to finish everything, and I actually cover some of that in ways to do things quicker in my next session, but what not to miss. These are the areas that you should make sure that you cover, because we don't always have time to cover everything. Also at the top are the 3D progressions, which I'm not going to go over each one. How do you explain the anchoring phenomena? Yeah, how are we explaining it to our students? And then the unit progression. So this particular section planning is for the overall units as you go through. We also have the unit projects, which you can look. If you wanted to do the unit project with working with the EPA, all of that information is right here, and you can open that up. We also have our videos. So if I click on the videos, and every unit page has the same videos, and I can sort. So I'm going to just go to unit 2, and it will show me which videos are available. And I could choose to show something about aerial of the San Francisco Bay or Antarctica, or I can choose to show any of these or have my students watch them as they go through. Games, we have both a lesson game and we have the vocabulary game for K through 5, lesson game, which can be used as a formative assessment for K through 8. We also have our biographies, and the biographies themselves are not in scope and sequence. That's something we're working on. But if you see a little video included, you can show that video. That video actually makes it much more accessible to all grade levels. For example, I had a kindergarten teacher tell me, oh, my students with math and science not putting together, and she showed the video on Benjamin Benneker, who was an African-American at the time of the Revolution, and how he learned to read and write, and he figured out puzzles and clocks using math and science. And the teacher said that made it very accessible to their students. You can assign these videos, and you can also grade them if you wanted to, or you could just show them. And then we also have the assessments, and that's over here, which I'll open up later. What I want to do is open up one of the lessons themselves. So I'm in unit 2, and I'm going to go to lesson 4. I can also go to that by going to the lesson overview. And I'm going to hit explore lesson. Remember, green buttons are action buttons, and TCI green is going to take you somewhere. I have another orange box. Ryan, any questions about the unit overview at all?
No questions so far about the overview.
Thank you. So I'm going to do Unit 2, Lesson 4, one of my favorite lessons to do when I was teaching. The essential question driven by the NGSS standards is, how do farming and industry affect Earth systems? Again, I'm in a 5th grade program. Here is the overview. Here's the investigation. And then making sense of the phenomena. A little trick with TCI. If you open this up for a lesson and you see a video, you're actually going to need materials, either the materials kits if you purchased or materials that you would gather to do this particular investigation. If there isn't a video, then it's more observing using the picture cards or placards or other forms, and not specific materials as you go through. And I'll just play a tiny bit.
In this small group investigation, you will observe effects farming and industry have on Earth's systems. You'll simulate the effects the mining industry has on the geosphere by mining chocolate chips from chocolate chip cookies.
Okay, so that gives you an idea. The only thing we don't provide in this is the chocolate chip cookies. If you purchase the kits there. Chips Ahoy works great, by the way. Your objectives, what I need to do as a teacher before class. And this is really important. Recommended reading. Do I read it before with my students? Do I read it during, or do I read it after? Most of the reading is after. Teachers are kind of, when should my students read? A lot of it is after, because with NGSS, we want our students to get involved. We want our students to be hands-on and to figure things out. And then the reading would come after that. We also have the materials listed here. And so you'll see what you would need. But over here on the left, you'll notice under lesson overview, if I click on the materials button, it will show me all the materials I need for this lesson. And if you purchase the kits, you can hover over and it tells you exactly which box, which bin, and for the unit you have. If there's a human, then you would produce, there would be a teacher supplied there. So this literally tells you, which is a really nice component here. So you don't have to try to figure everything out as we go through. Here, it just gives you a basic idea of what they are. If you go to the material section, you know where to get them. Lesson support, again, middle school, this is all the same. What are the key takeaways that your students will get from this particular lesson? Learning progressions, it will tell you in kindergarten, they learn this. In 5th grade, they learn this. If I was doing 8th grade physical science, it would say in 3rd grade, they learned about motion and physics, etc. Last two things under here that are important are one, differentiating instruction. How do I make sure, and this is important to us at TCI, that every student has access to learn, that everybody will achieve? What do I do for my EL students, my students with special needs? And then the advanced learners who are done like that, and they say, now what do I do? And so how could you make this work for you and for all your students in your classroom? And finally, enhancing learning. These are materials, these are ideas that are outside of the TCI curriculum that we've provided access to. It could be a FET, a simulation. It could be a game. It could be a virtual field trip. It could be reading suggestions. So there's lots of different components here as we go through. And then finally, science background. What do you need to know for science? For some of us, K through 5 especially, we're not necessarily a science expert. So what do I need to know to help my students understand as we go through here? Any questions about this, Ryan?
No questions so far. I think you're being very clear.
Thank you. All right, what I'm going to do now is go to the investigation slideshow. Two most important words you got: investigation, slideshow. We've done the work for you. And again, this is under lesson overview. I slide down and I'm going to present. This is what I present to my students. These are all the components, and we just walk on through. The observing phenomena. Have you ever wondered where smoke comes from a factory? What might a factory impact community resources? I can click on this, it'll blow up. I can make it larger, I can drag it around. It will not pixelate. You can enlarge it, you can focus, you can have your students come out and point, interactive there. By the way, you see orange here. Remember, everything that's orange is for teachers. It gives you help. What's the lesson support? What's built in? It's not for your students, but every time I've seen a teacher or I've done this, kids always say, what's that orange box in the upper corner? So that's really for the teacher there. Then we have the observing phenomena. And then there's a video with that. By the way, this is also on the student side online, so they can see this phenomena. Most of our phenomena do not have sound to them. We want our students to watch. Sometimes there is, though. And then on the right, this is what again, 5th grade, it'd be their journals. Middle school, it would be their interactive student notebooks, and you can start typing, and you can model for your students as you go through. I'm just going to continue to slide through a few more. So that's about 5 minutes. Then we prepare for mining for chips. You notice we're going to connect to the phenomena. It's right there. How does this connect to our students' lives? What are some human activities that affect Earth where you live? We're asking our students to think. We're asking our students to ask questions. If you see a plus, it reveals an answer. Remember, our students aren't just auditory learners, as you know, they're also visual learners. So if they hear it and they see it, it helps to reinforce that idea. And I'm going to move through pretty quickly here because these are the slides. You can walk through. You have 2 rounds. You may only do one of the rounds to shorten the time up. Anytime you see an extension, that's an additional, and then the students would take their data and compare that with the elementary school, wrap up my science concepts. So we're asking our students to talk and discuss what they learned here. And then we ask them, so how do you feel about the concept? Are you an expert? Do you understand? Many of you know your students rate themselves harder than you do, so they might have a different component. And then there's a text with notes. And this reading was recommended afterwards. So I'm going to open the reading. And I'm going to actually I like to open to the actual source. So what I did that kind of quick on you, is I open this up and it takes me to the reading. This is the same thing that would be in the journal, looks the same, or it would be in their physical textbook for middle school. You'll notice on the side, in the reading, you can select the reading levels. Right now, the default is A, which is at grade level. That's the grade level default. If I move to B, it drops it about 25%. Kinder and first, we don't have that because we're not dropping it that much. There is also I'm going to move back to A. And you can control this for your students under settings, who can see it, whole class, partial class. If I hit play,
1. Humans affect Earth's systems. Humans affect Earth systems whenever they use electricity.
so that is our text to speech. And within that text to speech, it will highlight. It might be for your students, it might be dyslexic, those emerging readers and writers as you're going through. If you toggle into Spanish, which is down at the bottom, you still get the
1. Los seres humanos afectan a los sistemas de la Tierra.
I often think very limited Spanish here, but the Spanish itself sounds better AI than it does in English. For K through 5, under settings, you can actually, or excuse me, K through 2, you can actually have it read to them rather than being an AI form. I can also highlight the main ideas, which will drop the reading level about 10% in there. Again, dropping, just looking at main ideas, a lot of our students think every paragraph has a main idea rather than that being a topic sentence. So this main idea will highlight. Sometimes you want to do a quick read, so you just ask your students to look at the main ideas. You can also highlight. If I was teaching kinder or first, I might highlight keywords and discuss those with my students. I can use this as a big book for my students if I wanted to do that. Any picture, I can also blow it up and I can drag my cursor across. So and you can get your students engaged, students asking questions. As I slide down, this is what their journal would look like. So they have the opportunity to do it online, or they can do it in their journal or interactive student notebook. I'm often asked how much should be online, how much should be physical. That's up to you as a teacher. Most teachers I know really don't have their students doing these online until at least 3rd grade. In middle school, it's kind of a mix up there as we go through. Any questions about the reading?
I'm not seeing any questions so far about the reading.
And then if you look up here, I can drop down to any reading section. And you'll also notice something called super simple science, and I'll get to that in just a second to highlight that. And there's also areas to explore more, air pollution, components like that. All right, now I'm back to the slideshow, and then as we go through, I'll just finish up. Again, it has the reading, takes an action, and then we ask our students to show what they know. Complete the bubbles from the point of view of a farmer and a miner. Afterwards, share your answers. And so, and again, students will never have show answer key, but this asks our students to wrap up what they're doing with the slideshow itself. Questions about the slideshow? So again, this is the investigation slideshow. I'm going to move to middle school really quick, and I'm going to look at the lesson overview. You'll notice it looks the same. The one difference is pacing options are in the middle school for quicker coverage because you have a lot more to cover, and it allows you to just condense and focus on certain components there as we go through. Same thing with the investigation slideshow. There is no super simple science, but the key science concepts are here. And so we're asking our students to look at these key concepts, kind of an overview, and you can assign this and students can actually walk through and do these key science concepts. So it's a great review for your students. You can use it as a pre or a post. So everything else for middle school is pretty much the same as the elementary school. For elementary school, I want to show you one more thing, the super simple science. Traveling tacos, we call it a video lesson. And 35 seconds.
Gather these materials to be prepared for the investigation.
Traveling tacos. Ordering in a restaurant is easy, but the foods in just one meal may travel long distances before you eat them.
And so it will go on, by the way, I'm going to put the closed caption on here for you.
How does food get to a restaurant? And how does its journey affect Earth's systems? Suppose you are at a Mexican restaurant. Your family is seated around a table looking at menus.
And the closed caption is a little ahead of the voice just because of my computer there. And then you can assign this. You can assign this instead of the actual lesson itself if you wanted to do that. And we're asking our students, they're going to start a food truck, plan ingredients you need, map out the route, name your food truck, and then assign. So this is still meeting a lot of the standards. It's not as in depth, but sometimes we just don't have time because of our limited time teaching maybe 60 to 90 minutes of science a week, alternating with social studies to do everything. The reason I put the closed caption up, because we are human closed caption, not computer closed caption. The same with our Spanish. Our Spanish is all done by human beings, not by computers. And that's the same thing with the closed caption there as we go through. By the way, you see this yellow dot that popped up? That means there's something new. It's telling me, hey, there's something new that I can do with my settings here as we go through. Any questions about the lesson overview?
So not about the overview, but about the reading page. Stephen had a really good question. And if you're going to go over this later in the webinar, we could, cover it there. But Stephen wanted to know if students are answering questions digitally within the online student license, how do we check and review their answers? Were you going to go over that separately, or do you want to cover that now?
I can cover it now. It was going to be a next minute. So when I go to grades, those answers will be, it's not live. They would have to submit that. So within my students, the grades would come up and
streamline your grading process and get a bird's eye view of your class.
you would see their information that looks like this. You would click on where you see Gisela Adams, you'd click on this, or the one in progress, and then you could actually see how they're entering and what they've entered. But it's not a live, so you can't see what's live. They have to have been working on. It's not that if Ryan was to start typing and within a few seconds I go on grade, I can see what they've entered in there. Does that help, Stephen? So
I think that was pretty clear. Yeah.
You need to go under grades to do that in there. I've been asked that question before. When can we see it live? Go back to your question mark, and then under feedback, say, hey, I'd love to be able to see it live. And so our folks at info and our tech people will say, oh, that's something that teachers want. And they will put that on their list there. Again, I tell you that we do what teachers would like, but we can't do everything. We try though. We try to do a lot for you. So the lesson overview, investigation slideshow. You can also edit the slideshow. I'm just going to open up really quick. Editing itself is a whole nother webinar in there. So what happens is it will create a copy automatically for me. And then I could do anything I want. I can change the borders. I can change anything I want in here. So I have that ability to edit as I go through. Then the question becomes, let's pretend I edited it. Teachers go, so where is what I did? So from lesson 4, these are the TCI slides. If I go to my slideshow, this is a slideshow that I created. So TCI, you can never, even if you edit it, you never change the original, which is really good. People like me are like, oops, I need my original back. I've messed it up so far. So if you try to edit, it will force you to make a copy, and this would be your copies. And you might have, if you're in middle school, you might have your 3rd period is not going as quickly as your 5th period for different reasons, and therefore you might actually edit the slideshows differently for those students. Or middle school, you might want to edit it one year, and then the next year you have a different group of kids and you have a different slideshow. By the way, any work you do does not disappear as long as your district and you have your subscription. So from year to year, everything stays. So you don't lose anything and you don't have to start over. So if it was 5 years from now, I would still have this investigation slideshow. Again, where did I find that? I was under my investigation slideshow where I can present, I can assign it, I can edit it. You don't need to copy it and you don't need to print the guide there. Questions?
Yeah, we got one question about sharing the edited slideshow with other teachers in your district.
And so, great question, by the way.
Yes.
And so when I went one step too far. I'm going to present just any slideshow. Down on the bottom of your slideshow, again, I opened the TCI, but you can do the same thing with your edited. Here, you can edit slideshow. Okay, so I wanted to edit in there.
Yeah, I think it has to be a custom one, Brian.
It has to be a custom one, yeah. I just realized that right as I was doing that. So I present. Thank you, Ryan. And now I can, okay, how come that's not there? That was a custom one. I apologize. It's,
Brian, I think that option, even though we've introduced it, if you're not seeing it, I think that's something that we're going to be offering for later this school year. I know we kind of used to do it, but it didn't really work properly. So our team is going to be looking into and finding a more, efficient way to be able to share that slideshow. So to answer the question, not right now, but our team is aware and we're actively trying to make this a feature.
and it would fall under the 3 dots down in the bottom once you open the slide.
That's where it used to be, but it wasn't really working properly. So our team is kind of going back and looking into it.
Okay, thank you for that in there.
Yeah.
Let's see, the video lesson games. Again, you can use this as a form of a formative assessment where your students would click on. All grade levels have this. I'm just randomly picking an answer. And of course I get it right. So I get 1 point. If I miss it, I get a second chance. And then, of course, I randomly got it right again. This never happened to me when I was taking standardized tests, by the way. And so they get a half a point. You could do this as a class competition. You could do it as an assignment. And what happens under grades, you'll actually get the results of the students and you can find out how students did. If you find that none of your students were getting question 7 right, you may need to go back and reteach that before you do the summative assessment as you go through. A couple other things, vocabulary cards. This is something that we changed because teachers are saying, you got your vocabulary cards and yeah, I can flip it. It looks like a boring version of Quizlet. Can we do something with this? I, as a teacher, like to print them off. So what we've done with the vocabulary cards, again, anytime there's a paper and pencil, you can edit. You can now add more words. You can do it in Spanish and English if you wanted to do it. You can add an image to this. You can take away some of the words if you want. One of the things that happens is I edited and now it makes a copy for me. Just a word of caution. I've done this and gone back to the original, then I have another copy and another copy and another copy. Always work off your edited copies, but I can print this. So if I print it, let's say I want to print it in Spanish. I know we have some folks. And there it is in Spanish. And you just print it back to back and you can print it off. And a lot of us like to put vocabulary around the classroom. If I added an image, the image would appear up here as you go through. So it's very flexible. It's very teacher friendly. And a lot of the teachers I work with say, hey, this is great. This is really good. Assessments. We have created assessments for you, but you can also create your own assessment. You'll notice the BL, that's my assessment I created, and this is the TCI. So what I want to do is I want to start a brand new test. Remember, green buttons are action buttons. And I'm just going to call this Summit. And I'm starting from scratch, but not necessarily because I'm going to use the TCI questions there. And I have the ability to create my own or TCI. And even if you're K1, 2, you can use these as kind of an exit ticket. You can show it up on the board. You can have your students answer these questions. And anything you do in the assessment can be done either printed or they can do it online. Again, I can sort. I can also do it by my depth of knowledge, my DOK, because some of us have students who have IEPs that only have a DOK level 1 or 2. I'm that bad teacher. I'm going to randomly, I forgot to do my little exit ticket. So I'm going to randomly pick the first 3 questions. I add to my test. It takes a second here. And then what I'm going to get is what I call my rough draft. Here's my orange boxes. And I actually want this question to be my last question. So I'm going to just drag it down. That's all I have to do. And if I click on it, here are my answers. You can reduce the number of answers you want. You can change it to Spanish if you want. You can add images or GIFs. We don't have images. We don't have a bank of images, but as everybody knows, Google Images has the best. And if you just take a screenshot, it will always fit because it has to be 2 megabytes. And you can just add it in and that will be part of it. So I'm saving this. And what I want to do is I want to see what it looks like if I give it online or I show it to my students. That's what it would look like. And your students can do it. Any multiple choice, any objective questions are graded by our program. Writing writing, drawing, etc., you would go back and grade that. I could also print it. Let's do it in English this time. And then that would be the assessment. Our assessment creator is fantastic. It naturally page breaks, so C and D won't be on a different page as A and B, or the experiment itself won't be on one page and the answers on the other page. A lot of our questions are interactive. They do have GIFs in them. They have little videos on them. They have data. So a lot of these would need to be done online if you're going to do the more interactive NGSS type of questions there. Questions about assessments. Again, if you're not doing a formal assessment, you can use this as an exit ticket for your students.
Yeah, Brian, we had a question about assessments. Do we offer unit assessments
Yeah.
for each of the units?
So I'm going to go back to assessments, and what I can do if I want to go to, I'm in this unit here. And so what you would do is you create a test, and then you can, here's your unit. I haven't created one yet, but what you do is you go in and unit 4, let's create a test really fast. And I can add as many lessons as I want. So I can pick and choose those unit assessments. So all of the questions, here's the TCI. I created a new test. And what I can do for this unit is I can say I want a unit lesson 3, lesson 4, lesson 5. This is my unit assessment. And then I can pick which questions I want to use for that unit assessment. So you can pick and choose. My recommendation, if you're doing, let's say lesson 3, 4, and 5 is a unit assessment, I would layer it. First, I would do lesson 3, then I would add on lesson 4, and then lesson 5. That way you don't have 150 questions at you at one time. So just layering it. We also know our students are best at taking exams based on the order that they learned in. It really helps. But make sure you actually layer as you go through in there. You can actually also add the interactive student notebook questions to this if you would like to do that. Let's see if we've got this one created yet. I know they're in the process of creating unit exams. So instead of you having to pick and layer, but they're in the process of creating that. So eventually when you click unit post test, it will all pop up for you as you go through in there. Other questions about us? That was a good question about assessments.
No other questions about assessments.
Okay, fantastic.
And just a heads up, Brian, you got about 10 minutes left.
Okay, great. I'm going to go up to the settings. And there's a lot of cool features in here. I went to settings. And I'm in my account, mine's going to look different, yours, obviously. Let's go to student features. You'll notice that I have all of these are clicked by default. And what that means is when the students access reading online, they can access level A and level B. They have that opportunity, and also Spanish. I have a district that I work with, and they have actually turned off level A for their students because their students are so far below grade level reading. So their students can only access level B in there. And so when they would go to the reading, they wouldn't have that ability to drop down and change the reading levels there. I can also do it by individual student if I want, and I'll show you that in a second. If you have a student that's emerged from EL and they keep hitting the Spanish instead of English, you can turn off the Spanish for everybody or that individual student. Text read aloud, main ideas, all these components here allow you to control what your students see as a class here. Now, if I wanted to do it for an individual student, we try to make this intuitive. I want to change something about my classes. So I click on my classes. And then I'm going to manage students. I got to add the student really quick. I should have done that before. Sorry, I'm adding myself.
You could type in my last name, Brian.
I think mine was in there. Okay.
Lonsdale. It should, oh, you might be in a different account actually, so it's not showing.
So, but what will happen under my classes is I will get a list of students, and then I'll be able to check each one of those students. Okay, I'm going to do this really quick. Add students, add existing student.
You could just type in a name real quick for add new student, just so we could show them.
Desired name BLADD 123 ABC. E, A, B, C,
I think it needs to be 6 characters long at least.
F, G. I think that's 6. Apologize for that, folks. Okay, so now if I go back to my students, you'll see that I have my student, and all your students would be here in my period. And now just for Brian, I can turn off level A. And so all my other students would be at level A. This way I don't have to say, Brian, don't forget to go to level B. And students don't like to be called out on that. I could also turn off the text read aloud because Brian is that student that plays it every single time. You don't want to do that. The other thing I can do, I can hit the key sign and then I would log in as a student. And this is what the student would see on the student side. Why would you want to look at the student side? There's just times the parents come in and say, I want to see their work online, or I've seen this happen. It happened to me. I'm doing my work, but it's not showing up. So you log in as a student, it's there. So you have that ability. Again, so what I did is I went to my classes and then I can actually manage my students. I'm gonna go back to settings again. Oops, in the teacher, and going back to settings. And student access. You would only need students to be able to change their classes. We have a few really tiny school districts, community schools, that the students have to enter. Otherwise, students can't change because of your learning management system won't let them do that. So that's not an issue. But this is a big one with teachers. Do I want my students to have access prior to me assigning that? Right now, all of these are checked, which means my students could access everything online. But if I don't want them to access everything until I assign it, I would just turn this off. And then I would update that. And so now they cannot access anything until I assign it. If they try to, it'll say not assigned. It'll be a big white page on there. In there. Any questions on this? There's more settings, but I just want to show you assignments really quick because their time's running out here.
Yeah, Brian, real quick. Julie had a question, and I don't know if we could show her, but she wanted to know where students can see the assigned games and videos. Can you walk us through that real quick?
So when I create assignment, that's actually where I was going. So great question, Julie.
Sounds good.
I'm going to make an assignment and I create new. So I just went again, green button, create new. I'm going to just go to lesson 1 and I'm going to assign a game. Lesson review game. I picked, you can go through the whole menus there. I can pick which classes. If I'm middle school, I have multiple classes. I can pick which students. Brian might have an IEP that says he can't do this. And then what I'm going to do is schedule it due on the 26th. And then I assign it. Now, as a student, I'm going to go back in as a student here. I know I can go a little quick, but it just went back in as a student to see what the student sees. And now you'll see it comes up right on their screen. Hey, this has been assigned. It's due tomorrow. And if they can see past due assignments. So what I did, because I know I did that pretty quick for you, I made an assignment by going to assignments. And then I went back to my classes so that I can press the key and then I can sign in as a student there. Any other questions? And there's a lot more here, play with it. It's super intuitive. It's very intuitive. I always tell my students, practice makes habit. It never makes perfect, but it makes habit. So as you go through there, and your students will see that too.
I'm not seeing any other questions right now.
Okay, I'm going to go back to this slideshow.
And just a reminder, Brian, we got about 5 minutes left.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. We're here to support you every step of the way. We're always here. We have a TCI newsletter that you can sign up for on the TCI site. There's an in-app professional development, and that in-app professional development is right here for everybody. And it will walk you through everything I did today. It'll take you through all the components. You don't have to take the class. You can just do parts of it. For example, I want to look at the course, and all I want to do is get past Brian talking. All I want to do is look at grading. So I'm just going to look, and there's a screencast for you. So we've broken everything down for you so you can walk through. That's part of our in-app PD. And then you can also connect with Facebook. It is monitored. Kim monitors this, and there's lots of great suggestions and ideas as you're going through, or you could pose those suggestions and ideas. Talked about the in-app PD. And then also don't forget, somewhere either on X or Facebook, if you put hashtag TCI Summit 24, you'll be automatically entered into a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. So don't hesitate to do that. And you'll see this with each one of the sessions that you go to today. Finally, the next session that we have, these are the next sessions. I will be doing one on time-saving tips for K through 5. Even if you're going to be with me, you still need to exit to the lobby. And then once you're in the lobby, you will join that session in there. Even I have to exit and Ryan has to exit, and then we join back in. So you'll want to make sure that you do that.
And Brian, I'm going to enter into the chat the link to the lobby just in case anyone needs it.
We have about 3 more minutes. Is there any more questions? Anything that you want me to cover again? I know we went through relatively quick, but don't forget that in-app PD that will do screencasts of everything I talked about today.
I'm not seeing any questions at this time. I'm going to put in our chat our email address. It's info@teachtci.com. That's a great resource if any questions come to mind as you're exploring the program, or if you have any suggestions, or just if you need anything else, feel free to shoot us an email, and I'll put that in right now, just making sure it's correct.
And thank you all for what you do. I taught for 30 years, just recently retired, and you are so valuable. And I can't express enough how much you do for our students and for everybody. So enjoy the rest of the summit and have a fantastic rest of your summer. I know some of you are already back at school, but.
All right, thanks a lot, Brian. I'm not seeing any other questions, so we'll stay on for about 1 more minute. If anyone has any last minute questions that come up, feel free to put them in the Q&A. But if not, feel free to take off, and then you could join your next period.
Very welcome.